Welcome to the Kern Workforce Development Board's second Regional Planning Forum. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy day to be here. My name is Michael Saltz. I work for Employers Training Resource. The topic that we will be discussing is reentry partnership, building and sustaining successful workforce corrections partnerships by creating a provider network that achieves results. Before I introduce the facilitator of today's forum, I want to remind everyone that the next 4 forums will be for the preparation of the Kern Workforce Development Board's local plan. And that will take place on Thursday, November 1st, and the following Thursday on November 8th. So please attend. It'll be held here at the Beale Library. And the topics for the first local forum will be improving services to individuals with disabilities with competitive integrated employment. And the second local forum will be held that day. There's 2 on the same day on November 1st. And it will be the strengthening of the partnership between the Workforce Development Board and the Kern County Department of Child Support Services to better serve the non-custodial parent population. The board really needs your input and really appreciates if you could be there. We need input from other governmental agencies, public and private universities, community colleges, community-based organizations, experts in their field, and the general public to assist us with our regional and local plans. Please continue to make every effort to attend. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our facilitator of this afternoon, and his name is John Chamberlin. Mr. Chamberlin is an independent attorney based in Portland, Oregon. Over the last 36 years, he's worked in all 50 states and in over 200 local areas on workforce development, economic development and strategic planning, as well as service delivery and grant management. Recent engagements include improving workforce partnerships in Oregon, Washington, Ohio, Nevada, California, Maine, and Michigan. Strategic planning in California, Washington, Oregon, Georgia, Illinois, and Kentucky, as well as resolving grant management disputes in California, Wisconsin, Michigan, and New York. It gives me great pleasure to introduce John Chamberlin. Thank you, John.
Okay, Ruby, do you have anything to say?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ruby Awesome. I'm a regional organizer for the San Joaquin Valley and Associated Counties Regional Planning Unit. And so I'm happy to see everybody here this afternoon. And I hope we have an enriched discussion on improving and increasing services to our reentry population. So thank you.
Thank you. How we're going to handle this before John starts talking is I'm going to go around and give you the mic. This is going to be a videotape as well as recorded, and we would appreciate it if you could identify your name first before you speak. In fact, what I encourage you to do is not only identify your name, but spell your name as well, so it makes it easier for when it's being prepared and ready.
Okay, we're going to do very brief introductions. Just who you are and who you work for, because if we took 2 minutes each to do it, the session would be over. So really quick, let's start at that end, Michael. Who you are and who you work for.
Gerardo Garcia, I work for EDD in Delano.
Marcia Charles, ETR.
You just told me she hated me, but it's okay.
Sophia Morales with EDD. Laura Epps, EDD.
Maria Curio, Department of Rehabilitation.
Summer Ashby, Department of Rehabilitation.
Great.
Good afternoon, my name is Rika Galisa and I'm also with Department of Rehab.
I'm Nicole Griffin, I'm the Prison Education Program Manager for Saragossa Community College.
Good afternoon, Mari Valentin, EDD.
Good afternoon, Diane McClanahan, Department of Rehabilitation.
Hi there, Michael Halpern, Employers Training Resource. Good afternoon, Randy Lorman, Employers Training Resource.
Tristan O'Neill, Victim Services.
Jennifer Patino, Cal State Bakersfield.
Long stretch. Elaine McNerney, Dress for Success, Bakersfield.
April Smith, Jason's Retreat, and Capistrano.
Yolanda Martinez, West Care, Stop Area 3.
Keith Woolridge, New Life Residential and Training Center.
John Spalding, Building Trades Council.
Joseph DeNoyer, Freedom House Recovery Homes.
Beth Cannavalla, Freedom House.
Alejandro Vento, DHS.
Juan Avila with Garden Pathways.
Lawrence Watson, ETR.
Barbara Colazzo with New Life Residential and Training Center.
Barry Champagne, Bakersfield Old School, Laredo Campus.
Indy Gerhava, Bakersfield College Adult Education.
Dixie Welters, Kern County Sheriff's Office.
Victor Cotera, Probation Department.
Martha Robles, Kern County Probation Department.
Julio Martinez, Kern County Probation Department.
Jennifer Bloomquist, Employers Training Resource.
Ollie Morris, AEM Enterprises, small business consulting firm.
Miguel Salazar, Kern County Department of Human Services.
Tiffany Rocha, Child Support Services.
Fernie Hayes, Department of Human Services.
Richard McCrow, Bakersfield College.
Good afternoon, Margot Ruffin, ETR, job developer with CalWorks.
Leo Frias, Kern Behavioral Health Recovery Services.
Michelle Keeley with Kern Behavioral Health and Recovery Services.
Thank you.
Oh, you have to keep that. Again, my name is John Chamberlin. I will be facilitating these sessions across 11 counties. My partner and I, David Schinder, I don't know if you've seen David do some of these. We're going to be conducting a number of the regional plan and local sessions. We're doing them here and also in Los Angeles County. We bid on and shocked and horrified to win both bids. It's a lot of work. We met with a lot of you 2 years ago when we wrote the first regional strategic plans. This is a modification of that plan that we do every 2 years, and it's really a new start for the planning process for prisoner reentry. And the goal of this, and I'll get into a little more detail in a bit, and hopefully let you do most of the talking, is to see if we can increase and strengthen and preserve what we do best and identify gaps we need to fill. A partnership between probation and parole, community service providers, the reentry community, the workforce system, the community colleges, basically all of you that are here. What do we do today working together that works well? Where do we need help? What could we add? And I'm going to be asking you to spend most of the time answering some very specific questions that drive our regional plan. I'm not quite sure why the state chose to do this regionally, since probation and parole are county-based in California, but it's a regional plan to deal with reentry. We're going to be hosting a number of forums up and down the 11 counties that stretch 300 miles, the largest planning region not only in California but in the country, to plan this. It's a quarter of the land mass of California. And again, every county does things a little differently. And again, this area, is anyone here from Inyo and Mono counties? Okay, we're gonna have to figure out how to fill that gap another way. It's, as you all know, it's a different world in Bishop than it is in Bakersfield. Not that far away, but again, a different world. So we'll probably have to do some outreach to them. Anyway, you're gonna think of things after the sessions, I hope. And if you wanna give us input, that's my email address. If you could send me something, or to Michael, who's your contact person for both the local plan. Michael mentioned some of the other forums. If you want to know about any other sessions, if you think of something after today's session, if you get it to us, I'd say prior to December 1st, we'll be sure it gets considered in the plan. So if you or a colleague think of anything or want to go to any other sessions, let us know. And by the way, for the regional plan, this is a regional planning session, we have others on this same topic, but they aren't going to be in Bakersfield. We have other sessions here, but if you want to go to another one, we consider the input at all of them up and down the valley when we do the regional plan. So in addition to electronic comments, if you want to attend other sessions here, or tomorrow I'm in Stockton doing this. It's a little bit of a drive, but you're sure welcome to come. Now with that, let's get started, and I want to introduce the process. I'm going to go quickly through this and then try to get to your comments. I went one too far. Again, there are 45 workforce areas in California. Most of them cover one county. This workforce area is 3 counties, Kern, Inyo, and Mono counties. In Los Angeles County, there are 7 workforce boards, 10.8 million people. So that's the most complex of all. But every one of California's workforce areas operates a little different. Our communities are different. The way we link with probation and parole is a little different. Every county does something a little bit different, and that's partly why we're having these forums. We have 14 regional planning units in the state. The smallest is probably Ventura County, that's all alone. This is the biggest. Again, 11 counties, 300 miles from the edge of LA County to the beginning of Sacramento County. Bakersfield to Stockton and a little bit farther. And again, all of us submitted 4-year plans. This is the 2-year modification, and this session will focus on reentry. Again, we have specific guidelines. California published lengthy is probably an understatement, guidance on how to do this plan. There's a lot of detail. There's umpteen pages of attachments. Just to give you in perspective, in LA County, in terms of inviting people who are active in reentry, I think we had 214 pages of players and a brief summary of what they did just for that county. It's a lengthy process. And just to give you a map, you can see how big the unit is. This is the San Joaquin Valley and, I can't read that word, other counties, assorted counties. Isn't that, how do you like to be an assorted county? Not very complimentary, but they're probably talking of Inyo and Mono, poor folks. And we have others. The littlest in size is Orange County, but again, a lot of population. And then way up in the north, that's an interesting area. We have more counties up there, and it's one planning area, but they're very rural. The topics that this plan will address, and we're going to do it in separate forums by topic, because again, when we write this plan, we want to write it based upon what you tell us, what the gaps are, what the needs are, again, what we do best so we don't lose track of it. The primary topic is to formalize the Workforce Correction System Partnership. What can we do better as a system to see that people who are getting out of jail or prison get a job, keep a job, and don't go back? Where are the rough spots in the system where we might work against each other? What could we do to smooth that out and do a better job? There's also a self-assessment, and we're going to have sessions on that are a little wider, as to what we're doing in the broader workforce world. What are the community colleges doing with new strong workforce grants? What are the new initiatives that EDD might have, or the Department of Rehabilitation, or a host of other players? What have we done well in the last 2 years that's new that we could build upon as a larger system, focusing on more than reentry, basically the whole workforce system. We're also going to be holding meetings with building trades councils up and down the valley, a meeting with them on how we can work better with the building trades councils to see that people get in and get through their apprenticeship system. And by the way, that is something we could sure focus with reentry. To get, again, earn and learn, a paid apprenticeship job, learning to be an electrician, a concrete layer. Construction trades are generally fairly friendly to people getting out of jail or prison, and they pay pretty well if you're in an apprenticeship program. I know the Los Angeles Building Trades Council has a prototype. They put about 100 people who were newly released from prison into their apprenticeship programs. 1 year later, 94 of them are still working and haven't gone back. That's pretty extraordinary. And part of it is they're making good money. And again, in addition to those three things, we held a session here, boy, what was it, about 3 weeks ago? Yeah, I think 3 weeks ago, on just kind of looking at what else has changed, labor force demographics that we might want to include in the plan discussion. And one of the things, Michael, you pointed it out and checked on it. Do you know that Bakersfield has the highest rate of disconnected youth? Young people who are neither working nor going to school of any major city in America. That's pretty, and we had a bit of a talk about what we could do together to help fix that. And certainly one aspect of it is a good reentry program. Seeing that when people get out of jail, prison, probation, adult, juvenile, whatever, that they connect up to the workforce right away. That's an aspect of it. So that's a little summary of the overall planning process. And again, the main focus of this, and again, it's driven by the state plan, is to get folks like you, stakeholders is the word they use, people who are already in this business, to tell us what we're doing best, where the gaps are overall, and how we could do a better job, and include that in our plan, and translate those into very specific strategies, ways to do this better going forward. And again, the State Workforce Board, appointed by the governor in Sacramento, they have formal agreements now. State Board, which represents the whole state's workforce system, all 45 local boards and 14 planning areas, and EDD and a host of other partners sit on that board. They've entered into formal agreements with the California Department of Corrections, the Prison Industry Authority, and the California Workforce Association, whose board are the 45 workforce directors of the 45 workforce areas. And we're really looking to mirror that at the local level. We're looking to also have formal agreements on how we work together that just aren't a bunch of lawyerly language, but actual strategies to do a better job helping people who are getting out of prison or parole get to work and not go back. With that, I want to leave, there was a study published by the MDRC, the Manpower Demonstration Research Corporation. They published it about 3 years ago, but it was a compendium of 20 years of research all across the country. And they discovered survey after survey, location after location, from Chicago, where I grew up, to rural Mississippi, where I've worked. There are three things that best predict that you're going to stay out of prison and not go back to jail. Three kind of tangible things. What do you think those were? Three things people could do that independently have the likelihood they were going back. Thoughts? Education was one specifically getting a degree or a credential in the year before you get out. And if you're in jail or prison, and you, by the way, the attendance rate in training is really high when you're inside. People show up. But if you could work something tangible that you learned that results in a degree, or if you get that in the year before you come out, the likelihood you're going back is halved. What's another?
Employment.
What?
Employment, John.
Employment is a second, and it's specifically having a job when you get out and working steadily for a year. So if you lose that job, getting another within a week. No gaps of more than a week. And by the way, getting a job and keeping a job is harder than getting someone one. The average person, it takes 3 shots within the year to get a job that sticks if you have a major barrier to employment. But again, it's so, when you get someone a job, the follow-up is critical. That's the second, getting a job and keeping it. What do you think the third is? It's a little trickier.
Support group.
What?
Support group.
That's actually, it's kind of part of that, housing.
Oh, yeah.
Coming out, if you live with your mother or your sister, you're less likely to go back than if you live with your brother or your father. If when you get out, you live with a group of people you were inside with, you're likely to go back. But a stable living situation with people who support you on a new path. Critically important. That one's another halves the rate. So living situation, work, and a skill or a credential that shows you're on a new path. Those are the big 3. There are others, and we'll talk about those. Okay, we've all got different ways of doing case management, meaning staying in touch with people. And personally, I don't like the word case management. It gets used a lot, but it implies that you're a case. A place I work a lot with, City of Detroit, they used to call, I think they were the first place that called all the people who dealt with welfare recipients or people looking for work or ex-offenders, and they called them case managers. And the woman who ran that, I knew her well, the sign on her door said she was the head case manager. That's where the word head case came from. If you were a problem, you went to see her. You were a head case. And again, not many adults when they grow up want to be a case. And not many people want the government to manage them. Nonetheless, that's the term of art that a lot of our fund sources use. I like coach better, agent better. You might have something else, but the term you're going to see in a lot of the rhetoric, shared process for case management. And what we mean by that is that support system. Someone who's there to support you and keep you motivated and talk through your problems with. Nearly everybody I've known who's made it in long-term training, who has major barriers in their life, had a good case manager. They had someone to talk through who was there just for them. It made a difference. How do we partner? And again, many of you work in an agency that does counseling, advising, case managing. How do we all work together to get better outcomes and share issues? And again, for reentry populations, many of you are in this business, but we've kind of done our work driven by our fund sources and our personal, not personal, but our organizational agendas. And can we learn from all of that and do this in a more aligned, organized way? And again, what we're focusing on as a system, and I know, again, from the studies, housing and other things are critically important, but the primary focus of this session is helping people get and keep a job. Have a shot to join the middle class. Or stay in it if they were in it, which is hard to do. Okay, and again, the state board made a grant. There's some funds available to each of the areas to do the planning. My partner, David and Schindler, by the way, we don't get all that $200,000. I wish we did, but we don't. And we get a share of that to facilitate the planning. And again, it was a competitive process that we put in for 2 years ago that's continuing. But there is some money available to help cover this process. This does not come out of the local funds you get. This is new money available from, I just want to let you know that the cost of this session today does not diminish your grant in any way. And if we do it right, we may bring in some other funds. The specifics are, this is strategic. We're not talking who gets money to do anything today. But hopefully this will result in some additional funding. And a major focus of that additional funding, the emphasis in the state plan is earn and learn. What could we do so that people who are, they use a term justice involved. I guess it's a bigger term than just being in jail or prison. You could be justice involved and you got diverted from being institutionalized. So people who are justice involved, what could we do so that they have a chance to earn while they learn, as opposed to taking a class that produces a credential 2 years later where they go deeper in debt each semester? It's very hard for people to do that who have barriers. And there'll be a grant application this spring that each of the regions will put in for, driven by this planning process. The other thing we want to do is we want to, and that's why you're here, we don't want to duplicate existing resources or existing partnerships. Many of you are here because this is what you do. What we want to build upon existing partnerships, identify them, build upon them, and if we find a great one up the valley in San Joaquin County that you could build upon or replicate, great. If you're doing something terrific here, we want to find it so we can replicate it. This is as much about finding where the strengths are to make sure we don't lose track of them as it is about finding gaps. How do we build upon the existing partnerships you've developed? So what I want to do today is get information from you about, again, what we're doing that's working well, what it is we're struggling with. I really want to hear from probation and parole, what you're doing today, what you see as most promising, what we could build upon where you see the gaps, and then to get into a dialogue about how we could do this better. So with that, let's start. I'm going to ask you questions, and if you're reluctant to answer them, I'll get more and more specific. But what I'd like to know, what partnerships, and again, community corrections partnerships, probation and parole folks, there's a number of you at the table. I'll start with you guys first. What community groups do you guys partner with, and what works best?
You raise your hand
if you're going to give it a try. You got nodded too, so.
Please identify yourself by saying your name as well as spelling it for.
Sure. Victor Cotera, C-O-T-E-R-A. We have a lot of partnerships. We actually, obviously the CCP is something we're involved with, but and the CCP actually funds a lot of community-based organizations, and those organizations that we work with, just New Life, Garden Pathways, there's a variety of them here. So those are the main agencies that we work with outside of public agencies to help facilitate reentry for different people we supervise.
Okay. When someone gets released from custody and goes through probation and parole, do they get referred to a specific entity? How is that handled?
Yes, typically when they are, the individual officers, based upon, we do our own assessments. So we determine their chronogenic needs, and based upon those chronogenic needs, then we try to refer them to different programs to best service those needs.
Great. Do you ever have someone and there's no one there to refer them? They come from a remote part of the county, or there's a set of issues that you don't have someone to take care of it?
Definitely. I mean, we're always in need and looking for newer services and other service partners. Even the services that we have, like our CBO partners, our sober living environments, we don't have enough of them. We can always use more. It's definitely something we're always trying to look into and strive for is to see and develop and to partner with new people, because there's definitely enough. We have a lot of people and we have a lot of need for services.
Okay. Others in the room who are part of a partnership? And again, what you see that's working well? Here we go. Thanks.
Yolanda Martinez, YOLANDAMARTINEZ. So I'm with West Kern Stop Area 3. We work directly with parole based off of referrals. What we do with parole is we do have that CDCR contract with them. So what we do is we try to do more direct placements. So once that we know an individual is getting out and being released from an institution, whether they're in our area or from another area, we have placement coordinators that in all the different areas of stop. So California has 6 stop regions. So they coordinate, they try and get different community partners. Here in Bakersfield, we partner with Bakersfield Recovery, West Care, Cherry Point Kenmore, some of the Legacy Village, Positive Visions. So again, it's kind of the same problem as we're trying to find more programs to try and get referral sources to and placements to. So what they do is once they're trying to encourage more direct placements. So before they actually get released, they have a program that they are potentially getting placed directly at their release date. So we have the service available so that at their release date, we have a van for them, picking them up and taking them directly to a program that we have a contract with. And all the programs have all the kind of the same kind of standards, the same kind of requirements as far as group requirements, employment services, vocational services, family reunification services. So that's what we try to do with parole. It's kind of all the same thing, it's just we need just more programs that refer people in, specifically transitional housing and sober living environments, because our funding source is 180 days with potential extension for another 180 days, so a year to give somebody a little bit of a foundation. But when someone is trying to worry about fines that they need to pay off, restitution that they need to pay off, DUI classes that they need to pay to try and get their driver's license back, TV classes that they need to try and do before they can again get their licenses. It all takes time, and it just kind of it just eats away at their funding time, and it just they run out of time before they are able to accomplish everything, before they can really take that next step forward.
So you would say a gap is that you just have the 180 days plus another, and the time runs out before you're done.
Yeah.
How many people do you think are still not stabilized at the end of that year?
It really depends on the individual, and a lot of it really is based on how much support system they have outside of the programs. Depending on if they have their current states, where again a lot of Rikers being released out, and a lot of them really don't have a lot of family that have stuck with them, so they're now completely alone. So the programs literally are their own thing. April and I were just talking about, providing extra support systems, because they really do not have anybody else that they can rely on besides the programs. And so just that communication and that connection with something or somebody in the community is also a little bit lacking.
Okay, and I have one other question for you, and then anyone else who wants to weigh in. Do the people who get referred to you, are they there because they have to be, or because they want to be?
We get both.
Okay.
Yeah, so it really just depends. So individuals that are getting referred in, they're like our lifer situations where they really don't have any other options. It's either go to a program or go be homeless in the county that you'll be last offense. So those individuals are the ones more willing to kind of be active and, work with the programs. Other individuals that have other options, like they do have other support systems, they're more willing to kind of walk away from a program because either it's taking too long for them to find a job, or they just miss their, girlfriend, wife, whoever, for too long, and they're just ready to go see them. And for us, I don't know the statistics specifically, but it's if individuals are doing more of those direct placements, going directly into a program at the time of their release, they are almost like it shoots up to almost like a 75-80%. I don't know the exact statistics, but their success rate of not reoffending just kind of increases dramatically if they kind of give themselves a little bit of a kind of cushion before actually reintegrating into the society, because it's a giant culture shock that a lot of them don't realize how much has changed and all the stuff that is still out there. So.
Again, every county is different, but I know from working with Sacramento County with this as long as 10 years ago, with some of the program designs they were doing could take the recidivism rate from as high as 80% down under 20%. The effect, how you design it, how closely engaged people are, and how quickly they get engaged. Every day between getting out and being involved lowers your success rate, and the busier you keep people, the better they do.
It really is. One of the things that I know definitely works well and worked well with our population is working with different programs. If they had something more specific, like specifically vocation guided, I have a couple of programs where specifically in the Fresno County we have one of our outpatient programs that is connected to the Caltrans work group. It's only a 90-day work program, but they get paid for it. But it's not an immediate thing. They have to do the program for like the first 30 days. They have to attend groups, meet with their counselor. So it's a little bit of a process for them to kind of work toward getting able to get onto that work group. But people are willing to kind of, meet those requirements because they know that it's going to give them a little bit of a job. I had another program, the RMSC program there in Fresno, that it's now been absorbed under STOP, but they had started linking a volunteer group with, it's called Grid Alternatives. So they were training them on solar power installation. So roof, they're teaching them everything for solar power, roof, the groundwork, how to do layouts and all that. And so we had a little bit of an increase in individuals that were willing to kind of wait and kind of go through the process for the groups and for all the different requirements in the program to try and get into that specific group, because it was something that they could see is some kind of light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, okay, me doing these groups, it's going to eventually give me a little hand into something else. So having some kind of specific vocational experience that they can draw out of it and really incentivize the program participation from the participants, so that they would be more willing to stay in the program. And actually, abide by the rules, because a lot of times they don't realize that the program requirements as far as getting up on time, showing the group on time, it was mimicking what you're going to be expected to do once you actually get out into the workforce, that you have to make certain requirements and, you can't just be lazy about it. But they don't really, correlate those two things. But those are the kind of processes that if they were going to direct in the program, they could see that, and then when they actually start working, they're more willing to actually follow rules or follow orders of people that they normally wouldn't have, because if they knew somebody that supervisors, they're all very different, and if someone talks to them in a different tone, they know if they've had stuck with a program, they're like, okay, that's just them. Versus if they came out and they didn't have that little bit of a cushion, they're like, well, you can't talk to me like that. That little cushion really does help individuals transition just that much smoother.
Great. Let me try other community partnerships. No problem. Did great.
Hello, Juan Avila, Juanavila with Garden Pathways, a 501c3 mentoring organization. We're mentoring youth and adults, but just got out of a meeting called
previously incarcerated and educated. That's another group or another council that exists. I mean, Bakersfield College is here. They have the Inmate Scholars Program, and they engage a lot of other community partners to coordinate services there. Cal State Bakersfield has Project Rebound, which is another program for people coming out of reentry. The Ceasefire model, that's Bakersfield Police Department, and doing gang intervention and prevention work. So that's also, we do work with parole through their PACT, which is parole and community team orientation. So those are kind of some of those partnerships and councils that currently exist.
Great. Others? Department of Rehabilitation, if someone gets out that has a disability or may have one that's never been diagnosed, are you involved with corrections partnerships?
We don't have a direct partnership. We do get.
Diane, can you identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Diane Flanagan, D-I-N-E, M-C, capital C-L-A-N-A-H-A-N, Flanagan. We don't have a partnership, but we do get a lot of individuals who, once released, come to our office to apply for services. And I think one of the kind of stumbling blocks for them is some of them feel that incarceration is a disability. And it's not. It has to be a physical and or mental disability. And we have to have it something, medical records that document it from a licensed physician, psychologist, social worker, etc. So, and it does help that our name, the Department of Rehabilitation and California Department of Rehabilitation, so they come to our office. We can, sometimes we are corrections, but we're not. But definitely we work with individuals from that are on parole, probation, and we encourage, California Youth Authority is here. We are working with youth, and we encourage you to send your youth to us, ages 16 and 21.
So I'm going to ask you a question. If someone believes they have a disability, they've been in prison, let's say, for 4 years, they don't have any money, how do they go about getting the records from a physician or a mental health facility to show they have a disability?
If they do have they claim they have a disability, we will send them for assessments.
Okay.
We send them to see a psychologist or a psychologist if we have them on our panel. We're kind of limited on our physicians here in Bakersfield, but we will send them for an exam if necessary. We will try to get records from the prison and from the parole or probation officer.
Okay. Others, go ahead.
My name is Michelle Cooley, C-U-L-Y, and I work for Kern Behavioral Health and Recovery Services, so the mental health portion here in Kern County, and I work for the adult transition team. I'm the supervisor, and basically what our team does is we help transition inmates from being in custody back into society, so we try to help them with housing and stuff like that, and we work with probation, the sheriff's department, the courts. We have different teams in our division that work specifically with this clientele. So we have like the conditional release program, the state program from CONREP. We work with forensics, a lot of the clients that are sentenced to like state hospitals, and the homeless adult team. So we help also that population and people that are unfunded or don't have any green cards.
Okay. Other partnerships?
My name is Barbara Colazzo, B-A-R-B-A-R-A-C-O-L-L-A-Z-O. We work for New Life Recovery and Training Services. I kind of work both in residential and we have a construction training program. We are partnered with the Sheriff's Department. We're part of the CCP program, and we are also our partnership. We also partner with Bakersfield College, West Tech. I don't see anybody here from West Tech, but that's a really big part of our program. West Tech is a 3-week safety training program where the individual goes through safety training to get 8 or 9 different certifications to work general labor jobs. So we have a 90-day construction training program, vocational program, where when we get referrals from the Sheriff's Department, they reside in our housing department. They can also take part in our training, construction training program. And everything that you talked about trying to get them a job, trying to get them responsible, dependable, to go back out in society. We try to do that. We help them with on-the-job training. We have projects out in the field that we do with construction instructors. And being part of Bakersfield College is a big thing for them because they didn't know, because they just got out of prison or jail, that they couldn't be a college student, so that's a big motivation for them. And then getting their certifications from West Tech, then we help them try to get employment, help them with resumes, doing job search, and those kinds of things. I would say some of our gaps are transportation, housing. They are housed in our facility for 90 days, and then if they get approved, they can do a rollover for another 90 days, but sometimes that's not enough time for us to rehabilitate them and get them back into society. A lot of them don't want to go back out in the streets because they know what's out there for them. Yeah. They want to stay in our housing. They like beg, like, I want a rollover, I want to get an extension, because they know what's out there for them, and when they're with us, they're stabilized. And so more time is what they need to, they've been incarcerated for so many years, they have that mentality, and to retrain that mentality, it takes a lot more than 90 days or 6 months. And transportation is a big issue too. They get the job, but then they find that, they can't get a way to get that transportation for jobs. And one more thing is, I think our gap too is training. We need kind of like train the trainers. We need to get trainers in our facility to train not only the staff, but the individual to go out and do different things. For example, life skills, vocational skills, just different areas that they have a gap in. It's a big thing.
Great. How is transportation dealt with in rural America? 70% of people who don't show up to work had a transportation issue. Oftentimes what the employer sees is they're just not there. So how do you deal with someone who has a car but it's old and it breaks down one day? Do we deal with that? How do we deal with transportation? Again, we don't have a lot of people who live in a place that connects to a bus line that goes straight to their work. I wish we had more of it, but that's the reality is we're probably pretty car dependent. Thoughts? Do you have, let me go ahead.
So Indy Grihava, ENDEGRIJALVA, long one too. Bakersfield College provides employment opportunities on campus and on our multiple campuses that we serve. Part of our efforts to ensure that transportation is available is through some funding, some grant funding, and some advocates on campus. Transportation is free for our students. So what we like to try to promote is that if they can get a job on campus or in an affiliate location, then that transportation issue is eliminated. Now, once they're off campus, it's a different story, but we do have partnerships with like Kern Regional Transit to be able to get discounted rates for students. And then also through our adult ed program, if a student comes to us and says, hey, I can't get to work, I can't get to school, we're able to provide some bus passes. We don't always have them, but if the student says that they need that, then we can provide it through our funding.
Do we have a way to help people out for a day or two using Uber or Lyft or something if they need a car?
We haven't explored that yet.
Okay. I'm going to let you go.
I was just going to say, I know nothing about the program, but I heard a presentation that GET is doing just that. And
yeah, go ahead.
Elaine McNerney, ELAINE, I heard a presentation that Golden and Pearl Transit, which is our local bus system, is exploring and going to be trialing in first, second, and third quarters next year various routes where they will have direct pickup a la Uber, a la Lyft.
Great.
That's all I know.
Okay, that's helpful though, thank you. Go ahead.
Not in the area, but in the Stockton area that I cover as well.
Can you identify?
Sorry, Yolanda Martinez.
And you don't need to spell your name a second time.
Okay,
but,
sorry. Yolanda
okay.
Martinez. So I know in the Stockton area, we have a lot of individuals, quite a few that have started working at the Tesla manufacturing that's not even in Stockton, but a little further the coast. But what the company themselves has started doing has been to offer more like park and ride pickups, where they have actual transits, buses, mini like little car shuttles in different locations within the city to pick up their employees and take them to their actual work. And that's the only place I've really seen it. I haven't seen that kind of shuttle offer. We have a lot of large production manufacturing in the valley, all coming down the 99. There's just tons and tons of cars at these facilities. And I know the city council of air quality, they have different incentives. I try to push car riding. There's incentives for individuals to carpool, financial incentives for individuals to carpool. So we try to encourage our Dodgers to let the employees know that once they get a job, to try and get their participant or their peers to maybe carpool. Once they have a job, then they let their friend know, and that way they can maybe carpool together, kind of do more incentive things that way. So and try and do a little bit of education that way, because
Great. Okay, other thoughts on transportation or any other partnerships you want to talk about?
Well, I don't really want to talk about partnerships because I think there's plenty out there, but I do want to, Richard McCrow, MCCR.
Okay. And let me just tell you, I apologize to be rude, but this is all going to be transcribed, and in order to do that, Marcia, who does this, spent hours and hours last time, and because she has to look at her sign-in list, etc., to determine who it was that spoke. So it just makes it easier. Again, my apologies, but please, if you could identify your name as well as spell it the first time, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With Bakersfield College, we recognized that we had a number of underserved communities within our area of responsibility. And so we've expanded and pushed out training, and so we've got branch campuses all over the county in Shafter and Wasco, McFarland, Delano, Arvin, Job Spot down south. So we've got a number, and so I think we recognize that transportation was an issue for our general population of students. As we get into inmate scholars, we have a club on board that's called the Free on the Outside, and that group sort of takes care of each other, and they look for funding to help and assist students. So if transportation's an issue, they sort of self-support each one. Right now, unfortunately, they self-identify, but it is hopeful in the future that we have some way of case managing folks and bringing them in intentionally.
Wonderful. Let's skip along. We'll come back to this. How does the workforce system, and by workforce system I mean all of you that help people get jobs in the community, how do you collaborate with probation and parole? Maybe I'll start with you guys again, and then we'll come back. You're next. But how do you work with the workforce system?
I think typically it's just referral process. We, again, when someone comes in and we identify them as needing a job or whatnot, we usually refer them to something like ETR. I don't think we do a great job in terms of trying to get people jobs. There's a lot of other things we're dealing with. But when it comes to that, that's usually the process, just simply a referral.
Okay, and let me take it from ETR's end.
Lawrence Watson, L-A-W-R-A-N-C, W-A-T-S-O-N, with Employers Training Resource. And the way we collaborate with the other agencies, starting out with individuals that may be homeless, we have a collaborative that we're a part of. And so there are a series of meetings, of resource days that we have. And so we'll have staff that would go to those functions to identify individuals that have barriers. And then once we identify them, we'll then assist them in trying to get them enrolled in our trade. Identify one, does this person have skills to be able to get a job right away? If they do, then we can get them in our job search assistance program. While they're in there, we have staff that will assist them for things like resume preparation, all the interviews and all of those things. But they also are able to get into supportive service. So issues related to transportation and all of the other readiness issues, we do assess for all of those to deal with those issues. When it comes to issues with parole, their PAC program, for instance, where they have the mandatory once a month program where individuals are released and mandated to go to those meetings. We are there monthly to identify individuals who are interested or ready, maybe already have some skill sets going to coming out, that are ready for a job, to look for work. We can enroll them right away. And if they need training at that point, we can identify and then get them into training at the same time. Their staff supportive system that they have, where they'll staff will pay their other agencies to have a place for them to stay. So as far as the overall collaborative system from our standpoint, what we've done is Department of Rehabilitation. We do have a partnership with them where they are, for instance, if they have someone who have a need for training, or if they can't deal with them, once they refer to us, those individuals are either looking for work or they're looking for training. We assess exactly what barriers, and at that time identify either through our AB 109 program or through, we're talking about parole, but through the Sheriff's Department or the AB Matrix, when we go into the jails, for instance, alert and support, where we are informing those individuals ahead of time before they're released. These are the things that are available to you as soon as you get released. I was just at the photo meeting, I think it was Thursday, at Bakersfield College, which is individuals that free on the outside program, and I was actually met with the individual at BC on Thursday at their meeting, and that was essentially to let them know about all of these services that we have through Employers Training Resource. And interestingly, two of the individuals that when I walk in actually called me up and said, "Hello, do you remember me?" And what they were trying to remind me that they remember me from being in Lerdo, informing them that as soon as they get released, all they have to do is reach out to us. We can provide these services. So across the board is that we do have collaborations. Many a time what happens is that individuals within those specific agencies might not be aware of how those things are happening, but if you dig deep enough, you'll find out that in essence, do a lot of different services, things like books, passes, and all of those things. We see our friends over to mental health. We utilize their services constantly also to when we run into situation, we're able to reach out to their staff in either the homeless collaborative or directly across the board. So that's how we reach out to our different partners.
And another question for the workforce system, do you know, is there a formal mechanism so when someone's been referred from probation or parole to ETR or workforce center, do you know about that? Or are you dependent on the person actually showing up?
We have many different systems. For instance, with the AB 109 program, for instance, we'll get direct referrals from the sheriffs and so forth and the other agencies. For parole, usually at the PAC meeting, at that point, we will make contact directly. The staff at parole also have the ability to refer directly to us in terms of referral. So we have each agency that we actually have a referral sheet. So Department of Rehab or each of them, we do have a specific referral, so each agency can actually refer directly, or they just refer them directly to an orientation. At the time when they come to, we have numerous orientation. At the time when they come to the orientation, we are able to also, part of the assessment process is to identify, once we identify that there's a barrier, at that point, our counselors are able, part of the process also, if we're going to refer someone who's on parole or probation, or we know that they're part of Department of Rehabilitation or have a mental health issue that they're brought up through the process, we would quite naturally refer to parole or probation saying, hey listen, we're going to refer this client to training or to job search. I want to make sure that there's not a conflict with what you're having them do. Same thing with those other agency or maybe DHS or so forth. So those kind of assessments allow us to be able to identify and be able also to supportive service either through us or through, let's say, DHS that provide supportive service to coordinate and make those things happen across the board.
Thank you. Michael, I don't think you've had a say other than making people introduce themselves.
Thank you. The referral process is something that we're working with partners, WEO partners and beyond, are working with now. In fact, we have a meeting coming up this Monday to talk about that. That's something that the partnership of Workforce Development Board as well as the AJCC is working on diligently. The problem is that, paper is kind of like the 19th century, and we didn't move into the 21st century. So we're hoping to utilize more of email type of base. The problem is that some agencies won't accept Google Docs, so we're working through that. But we anticipate having a process that's in the 21st century by the end of the year. Thank you.
Because I think part of referral is not just making a referral, but knowing if they showed up and then what's happening with them after they showed up so we can coordinate our strategies. Let me try.
I was just gonna, I'll try to keep it brief. Collaboration also goes along with communication. Oh, Barbara Colazo, sorry. We have several of our residents that either are going job searching or have jobs, and we have several probation officers come in, keep in communication, but they can't always be coming in our office all the time, checking on them. So we do have, at least I know I do have some collaboration with them. We have a database that we just recently got trained on. It's called the Caseload Database for the Sheriff's Department. So we get referrals directly from them for any type of vocational training or any other programs that we have, or if there's a problem that comes up with any of the probationers, and we can automatically put that in the system and it'll get to that probation officer, so it's all done electronically.
Okay.
Juan, and one of the ways that, as a CBO, a community-based organization, one of the ways that we've collaborated with parole, probation systems, and law enforcement is in really working together to achieve their goals, right? Which is meeting those conditions and then reducing recidivism. And so almost looking at those criminogenic risks and addressing risk, need, and responsivity. And looking at those, developing pro-social skills and behaviors, looking at pro-social individuals that are around the person, and pro-social activities. And it's really working on those cognitive distortions and addressing those before sending them out into the workforce. And I think that's where we really work together with parole, probation, and law enforcement, is that we're looking at those top criminogenic risks and needs. We do have the Caseload Pro. I think one of the areas that we can definitely improve is further integration of information and information sharing.
Great. Other comments on this? Now, it doesn't mean we're done. I'm going to come back. Let's skip down to the last one. What is the collaboration pre-release? Do we have a way, a couple of you have talked about this, do we meet with people before they get out to talk about what we have to offer, to set them up with appointments? What happens before they get out? Thoughts?
So pre-release.
Name.
Dixie Walters, DIXIEWALTERS. Is it on?
I don't know. Let me check it.
Mic drop.
Maybe the batteries went. Who the heck knows? Hello? Better? The off button got pushed. It was probably me. It was me. Yeah.
So pre-release will probably be me.
Now it's off again.
It doesn't like me. Yeah, your mic is on. Oh, I see.
Michael, ideas? It broke. The batteries ran out. Hello? I had to push it harder. Now watch, it's going to go off again. Are you touching that button? Okay.
So Dixie Walters, DIXIEWALTERS. We do have collaborations pre-release, so post AB 109, that's when things really started getting big. We have collaborations with many people in the room, especially ETR. ETR actually has a desk in my office. They're there Monday through Friday. He teaches job readiness to whatever programs we have going on. So we have a huge partnership with Bakersfield Adult School. We've had a partnership with them for about 25 plus years. They do about 100 classes a week out there.
Great.
So what happens is depending on whatever agency it is, whatever CBO, we invite them in. They can come and speak to the classes, deliver their information, orientate the population with whatever programs they have. And we have that with many people. We have Freedom House comes in, I believe New Life comes in. We have a really great partnership with BHRS. So that does happen on a regular basis, and it's been happening for years. Started out slowly, but once we kind of got the ball rolling post AB 109, that's everything we do. My whole section is dedicated to programming the population, and all we do is get them ready to go out. And we deliver evidence-based programming. We work with Garden Pathways. They teach parents on a mission, and we focus on those evidence-based programming rather than back in the day, all we really did was educational stuff, which is important, including GED readiness, but now we really focus on that cognitive behavioral therapy. Anyway, we do lots of stuff. It's just the button. I just keep pushing the button. So, like I said, we focus on the evidence-based programming. We work closely with many people in the room, and they know that they can come in at any time.
You're hitting that button, I think. I have a feeling it's the machine. I don't think it's you.
It's not the operator.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question, and we'll see how this works.
Okay.
I think if you get near that button, it goes off. We're going to have to watch that. It's just a shaky mic. Okay. But what is it glowing red? You have to push it hard sometimes. Maybe it's done. Isn't that something? It's all, but I mean, maybe it's fitting. But what would you do more of pre-release? What would you, if you could add one or two things, what would you add?
That's a good question. I would add more classrooms, but that's a physical environment thing that we can't really change. I would add more classrooms. I would add more deputies, because what we do now is something that counties across California. This is a setup, right?
This is like those old televisions with the rabbit ears, and you had to put tin foil on them and move them around.
Okay, that's all again. So I would add more classrooms and more deputies. What we try to focus on is that partnership in custody with the
It may need charging, so if you could do me a favor,
I'll just yell,
everyone.
or-
Yes, if you could yell, that'd be great. Let's see if I can
And I'll
get
try
you
to
batteries.
repeat questions and answers a little or summarize them.
So across California, we meet on a regular with this organization called California Jail Programs Association, and what we talk about is how important it is for the inmate population to connect with staff. So the uniform tends to be an area of discontent between the population and us. But what we've done is really develop that partnership so they trust us. So we talked to them about trust the uniform. So I would ask for more classrooms and I would ask for more deputies because they need to have that positive interaction with law enforcement. And they need to know that we're there to help them. And they're learning that and they're getting it, but there is still, there's a lot of people that they don't trust it, and some are never going to. But when they feel comfortable in the classroom and they feel comfortable with who's teaching it, which most of my staff teach classes, then they start really absorbing that information and they trust that we're there to help them. We hand out our phone numbers, our emails. We ask them to call us when they're out and let us know how they're doing. So adding all those evidence-based programming, adding the collaboration with CBOs, and then more deputies and more classroom space. So it's a more programming environment, not necessarily don't get me wrong, there's some people that need to be behind bars and they shouldn't be in classrooms, but for the bulk of the population in local Kern County custody, they need more programming.
Is there something you do pre-release that's really good that you don't have enough of to give everybody a shot at it?
Well, they get to see me, so. We do the evidence-based, the risk assessments, the need assessments, the O&As, offender needs assessments. We work closely with probation. So that's a really good thing. It does identify those top criminogenic needs. The fact that the CBOs now have access to Caseload Pro, which is our case management system, so they can input data, we can see that data, we share that data, so data sharing is key. Partnering with BHRS, with mental health services, that's key. Those internal partnerships and external that we've developed over the years is made changes that we couldn't have expected. We think really outside the box. Back in the day, you would have never seen graduations or officers taking pictures with the inmates, or I ran into the same inmate at Walmart 3 times in 2 weeks, and I took pictures with him. He wants to take a selfie because that's what we develop. We teach him, we're your friends, we're your allies. We're not, unless obviously you do something wrong, but we're there to help you. And so developing those partnerships has been the best thing that we could have done between the CBOs and other internal agencies. Instead of having all these different silos, we're coming together, and that's the best thing that we could do.
Something we haven't talked about, and I know when you introduced yourself, was ties to substance abuse. So people who've had substance abuse issues, do we hook them up when they're inside with someone who will help them with a substance abuse problem when they get out?
We connect with BHRS really well. We teach the evidence-based drug use programs. I drug test them in custody to keep them accountable. And if they fail a drug test, we don't just kick them out and let them go. We talk about relapse as part of the recovery process, as long as they are actually in recovery and not active use. So we hold them accountable, and they get a lot of substance use, and then they have dual diagnosis, and she could probably talk more about that.
Okay.
Yeah, and
and your name?
Oh, sorry, Michelle Cooley. Thank goodness that man's not in here to yell at me.
He will be soon.
We do work hand in hand with them. Our program works really well. It's the fact that we go out there and we like to keep that linkage. So we actually go out and we pick up our clients and we take them when we do a pre-planned discharge, where we try to find housing before they get out. We know that we have to get them, their medications. They do like this bridge hotline medication where you can get a supply for 7 days, and then you go back and you get another 23 days. So that way you have a full 30-day supply of their medications prior, till they can get it to the doctor. I would say one of the things that we are lacking is we don't really have a residential treatment program for mental health. So we have like Jason's Retreat, or we have Freedom House, and we have a lot of great sober livings, but there's limited to what they can do for the mental health portion. So if I could have my dream world, if I could get a client out of custody and get them into a residential treatment program coincide with mental health treatment, that'd be fantastic.
Great idea. Other thoughts? And just say your name and we'll have to write it down because
with Saracoso Community College. So we are servicing students and offer programs in 2 correctional facilities here in California. We have about 800 students this year, and what we're doing is we're offering them, right now we have 7 degree pathways, transferable degree pathways in AAs. So when they finish their program, they are able to, when they get out, either transfer or they will have an AA where they can start their job. The partnerships that we're starting to create right now with collaboration is with the CSU system and the UC system and other colleges, so they can continue into a bachelor's program. That's something we're working on. I second your need for more classrooms. That would be amazing. We could service more students and offer more classes, more pathways, more options for them. That would be amazing. So something that we're working on and we're growing is our formerly incarcerated program. So we'd like to offer a student club or a student organization on our campus, not only to serve our students currently who are incarcerated when they parole, but also the parolees that are in our area. We'd like to also offer them education services as well. So we're looking to partner with more organizations in the future as we develop that program.
Great. Other thoughts?
Yolanda Martinez. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot. One of the things that I know specifically for the pre-release information is they have and they continue to have what they're called transitional counselors when they're in prison. So they have basically resource fairs, provider fairs, depending on the prisons, sometimes two times a year. I actually will be going to 3 of them next month. I went to 2 of them this month, and what those are literally mini like PAC meetings here for Kern County, and they have them all throughout the state. The different prisons are trying to bring providers from the community into the prisons to give information and educate the inmates about what programs, what services are available to them prior to their release. One of the things that I've seen and I continue to see is when I am at these provider fairs, there is literally maybe like the most I've ever seen is maybe 10, 15 providers within a community where I know there's so many more resources available to them. And I think one of the biggest things is, that's that lack of communication with the transitional counselors and the community members in the different communities to try and educate individuals that are, available for services. Within the 10 or 15 individuals that have come to those provider fairs within the prisons, those are individuals that make up individuals that were from LA, from San Diego, up north. And so it's not just the community itself, it's other areas, because they have individuals in the programs that are not gonna, or in the prisons that are not gonna be released to that county. So individuals that are in McFarland, individuals that are in Tehachapi, they're not coming to Bakersfield. They're not, they're going to other areas. So that kind of goes the same thing with individuals that are up in the Jamestown. They're, potentially trying to get released into the Bakersfield area. And so that information is one of the things that really is lacking is, programs, staff, that are helping inmates as they're getting out. They don't know of the programs that are in areas outside of their area because, sometimes it's just too far for staff to go. So I think that is one of the biggest things that it really is lacking. The institutional staff don't know of the area programs that are in areas outside of their county. And that's one good thing that with those provider fairs that are kind of going, all year round in the different areas is good for, individuals to be connected to. One of the things that STOP specifically has actually done in this new contract that we started July 1 is we have, in our specific area, we have hired 2 individuals. They're called community service representatives. We have one here in the Bakersfield area, and then we have one individual stationed in the Fresno area. And what they're going to be doing is they're going to be distributing the 7 prisons or the 14 prisons in our stop area 3 from Bakersfield to Stockton. And they're going to be going periodically into the prisons. What they're working on right now is getting their little brown badge so they can go more regularly into the prisons to connect with those transitional counselors. To again educate the transitional staff of the programs that are available. All the stop areas have these community service representatives. So again, the more community representatives that they get to know, the more they can pass the information back to the transitional counselors in the prisons and try and encourage more of those direct referrals. So I know that is kind of one of the biggest things that's lacking is the transitional staff in the prison don't know of the process and the programs available.
Is the answer different when we get to the more rural parts of the county? Yes. Are there gaps within the county where it's hard for people to get at services? Oh, yeah. What could we do better to connect up with people who are coming out of probation and parole or are in those rural parts? What could we do to ripple the services out better if they're not in Bakersfield and live in a little tiny area near the fringes of the county? Thoughts?
Cindy Grijalva.
Bakersfield College. One thing that we've done and that we're planning to expand upon is we have what's called a co-located facility with Bakersfield Adult School, Bakersfield College, and America's Job Center. It's called the Job Spot. And basically, we're all in the same room, and it's in the Vallarta Shopping Center on South H in Panama, because it's a completely untapped area, completely underserved area of Bakersfield, where these services had not been ever provided out to the community. So what we're doing is looking to create locations like this in our rural communities. The next one on the agenda is Wasco, but McFarland, but bringing in additional partners such as DHS, Department of Rehab, in those facilities and through those conversations. So that way we're just in the same room. You know, it expedites the conversation. The services are right there. When adult school students are walking out, we're there as BC staff. ETR sitting right over there, so we know how that handoff is happening. It's super high touch, incredibly intrusive, but it works.
Great.
But to do better is to make that happen in the rural sites that we're serving throughout Kern County.
By the way, that's a national issue. Recovery from the recession happens quicker in more populous places. Rural America isn't coming back from the recession. So it's connecting with services and then connecting them with work, which also isn't evenly spread throughout the county. Okay, let me switch gears. I've got more questions for you. I just won't stop. Michael talked a little bit about an electronic 21st century, and this is referral both ways, not just from probation and parole to service providers, but also between those of you in the room and back to probation and parole. What would an ideal referral process look like to you so that a person could get at all these resources with the fewest number of people being lost when we make a handoff or referral? What would that look like?
Happen to sit on the committee for the referral.
This is Indy again. Okay.
I happen to sit on the committee for the referral with many of our partners in the room, and we've gone back and forth on what this could look like. Ideally, something that we all have access to, that every agency, there's not blocks or barriers from our respective powers that be, government blocks or whatever it is, but something, a uniform system where it just dings up on the computer or just connects to our email that, hey, I've handed this person off to you. And that's an automatic database to be able to pull reports, and the handoff is done. And then the follow-up can happen from there. What's happening now is the email handoff or the paper handoff, and there's no way to track that. There's no way to pull. I mean, you can go through your email or you can flag it, but it's really difficult. Just a streamlined, immediate referral.
Yeah, everybody's struggling with that, by the way. So if I hear of anyone in one of the other counties come up with something, we'll certainly share it with you. And if you debug this, please share it with everybody else. Because again, our referral process, it's great that we even have them, but they're from another century. Okay.
Can I add something to that? I'm sorry, Juan Avila. I
Great.
know Texas does something similar.
Thanks, Michael.
I know Texas does something similar. They call it, and there's been discussion in Kern County in regards to an accountable communities for health and having an integrated information system where different agencies, government organizations, public agencies have access to it, and they have limited, because of HIPAA and because of FERPA, there's limited access depending on who you are. But at least you can see what other agencies are touching that one individual, so that we can better coordinate, unduplicate services, and be able to connect with each other when maybe I haven't seen my client for a while, but I see that they are connected to BC. Let me contact BC, see when the last time they saw them. So there's something in Texas, I believe, that's done something similar.
Juan, don't you think caseload's like that a little bit? I mean, we could use caseload in that manner.
Yeah, and I believe it could be expanded.
We have this system called Caseload Pro, so that's a case management system with probation, the CBOs all have access to it, we have access to it, so whatever we're doing, we're putting that information in, and depending on your roles and rights in the system, you can see what everyone else is doing. So I think that's a small version of that, at least it's the beginning version of that.
Great. Thanks for not breaking the mic again.
Right. I'm so strong.
Yeah. Okay. Let's, I just won't stop asking you questions. And again, what staff support, if we were, we have other grants we're going to be writing, if we needed some more staff somewhere to increase our level of collaboration, what would those staff be doing? Thoughts? I hear people saying stuff. Did you say something? Nope, I'll let you off the hook. Anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak? Well, you get to go up because no one wants to talk.
Amy Grahava. So we just designed a position called a resource navigator between adult school and Bakersfield College. And they're actually employed by both of us. It's a professional temporary position just to see if this is going to be successful or not, but it's a neutral party between the agencies. The goal of the position is to be able to navigate the students or clients that walk in the job spot to the right program. And I know again, it's far-fetched to see if it's going to work, but just a liaison between the agencies and the partnerships. We're all representatives of our agencies, but a neutral liaison, I think, between all of the agencies is good. So we'll see how that goes.
I know working with the healthcare system is part of our last planning. They're all saying we need some joint triage person. Their biggest need, even bigger than nurses in their system, is someone who would see that patients ended up in the right spot, because there's all these referrals to specialists, insurance companies that get in the way, but what we're kind of thinking about it almost as a triage specialist. And if someone wasn't showing up or it wasn't working in one place, who'd be kind of neutral and smooth it out. Other thoughts? Now you better spell your name, Michael.
Michael Sauls. Because this is more regional based, I have to tell you that Ruby Awesome introduced herself. She's our regional organizer. I mean, we really regionally do a great job, in my humble opinion, as to working collaboratively. Not only does the CCWC, from our director, Teresa Hitchcock, to all the directors of the workforce development boards in our area, Ruby make sure that there's grants that we're all aware of, that we all work together. So I think that we are doing a superb job with regards to regional collaboration. And there's probably always room for improvement with regards to working together locally. But I really do think that we're doing a great job. Thank you.
Having touched services in a number of the 14 areas in the state, this is the largest, most complex in terms of space and number of counties, but probably I would say the regional collaboration has the least friction, where there's the least conflict in it. Part of it, it's a larger space. I also work in LA with the 7 boards. Their turf is always an issue. In more rural places, it's vacuums. And it's more, if someone's stepping up and doing something, the attitude is go for it. In LA, they say, oh, you're getting between me and the money. So it's a very different reaction. Okay, other thoughts here?
April Smith, APRILSMITH, with Bakersfield Recovery Services, better known as Jason's Retreat in Capistrano. My role there, I facilitate an employment readiness group for residential, and then I'm also the case manager for the male and female sober living. My role as a case manager entails a lot of connecting people, clients with resources collaborating, strong communication, follow through and follow up. That's where I'm finding a lot of success. But I would say that case management is very vital.
What's the biggest issue that your clients who have a history of substance abuse issues have in keeping a job? What's the biggest issue that knocks them out once they have a job?
Once they obtain the coping skills with the triggers and everything, and they're work ready, I'm going to say the biggest issue is transportation and other supportive services like clothing, work boots, maybe basic tools, internet for their phones, things like that. Resources.
Great.
So,
say your name. See, I'm giving it to him too.
Michael Saltz. Anyhow, recently, just the other day, I was at the CCP meeting, and there were a number of agencies that were trying to file an appeal to try to get more funds. And you had a number of individuals that kept going up and talking about how awesome the agencies were. One of the things that they mentioned is, and I thought was important, and we talked about this before, was mentorship. Is really having a mentor be there to help them through the hurdles makes a big difference in their lives. So I think mentorship is the key.
Laura Epps, Laura-E-P-P-S. I wanted to share that EDD does have a bonding program. So if you have individuals who receive a job, we can give them, the employers a bonding, and it's up to $9,600. This way it'll assure the employer that if something happens, they're bonded and they can receive that money. Okay. Another thing I wanted to mention though was I noticed that people were talking about barriers, but what about tattoos? Don't you guys think that's also a significant barrier? And is there organizations here in Kern County where they can do it at no cost? Because obviously we know they don't have any money. So you're saying no? We need to have it in Kern.
Okay, response to that? Tattoo removal, is it an issue? And if it is, how do we deal with it?
It is an issue with some of our clients. We use the makeup called Dermablend, and they put that on and it covers it up. I mean, of course, you have to do it every day, but it does conceal. If it's a small, it's a very large one, you know, but if it's on their face, they can use the Dermablend makeup.
Other thoughts on tattoos? I'll let you try it and then we'll come back.
Victor was that. We actually do have a takeaway tattoo program that we do use. So we do, it's every, do you recall how often we do it? It's usually around the weekends, I think every other weekend or so. We have people sign up and we set them down there and they actually do go through the process of removing their tattoos. So there is, we do have services available for that.
Great. Any other comment? Yeah, go ahead. And did you have one comment on that? Because okay, I'll come back to you.
Juan, Clínica Sierra Vista also has a tattoo removal program. Through Garden Pathways, we've actually applied for a grant to start up a tattoo removal program and replicate those similar model to Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles. We'll get notification in November. It looks very promising, but again, we'll get notification in November to start the program in January 1st, 2019.
Great. So Dermablend until November.
Yes. Our clinic is
Yolanda Martinez. So I was gonna say for parolees or individuals for the current area, the one closest one is, and some of the ones that I had seen some of our programs use was a program out of LA, and the programs themselves would actually take the individual down to LA. In Visalia, we have there is a laser center. It's actually a beauty spa that will actually just donates their services to individuals. They just have to do like a certain amount of volunteer hours. And as long as they get the volunteer hour submitted to them, we have programs in Fresno, Visalia, and Porterville that utilize their services. In Stockton, there is one that is kind of a little bit more of a sliding scale base, but that is one big area that is a big barrier for individuals.
Okay. Another question for you. Are there enough jobs to go around? When people, are there places to apply to in this economy? The answer is yes. Are there skill gaps where there are specific skills we could be adding where we don't have enough, where we don't have a training program or don't have enough classrooms, as you pointed out? What if you had to add a class in a very specific thing to help people keep a job, get a job, what would it be?
Jennifer Patino, CSUB, PATINO. One of the things that we get asked about a lot is leadership courses. So you can give someone a job and put them in, like, let's say middle management, but now how do you teach them to manage others if they've never done it before? So I would say definitely some kind of leadership training.
Okay. Does anyone here offer leadership training or have experience with that? I know we do some of that for youth in the workforce system. Go ahead. April?
April Smith, Bakersfield Recovery Services. I'm going to say life skills is a big one, and etiquette. Yeah. Manners, etiquette.
Yeah.
Big.
Who's teaching? I know some of you are doing it. Who's teaching life skills? Who's teaching etiquette in the room? Let me try this.
Dress for Success, one of the...
Name?
I'm sorry, I didn't name their name. Dress for Success is an international organization that focuses on just those soft skills and transitional skills. And yes, we do incorporate that into every contract we have with every customer. We serve only women, not my fault, that's the way it was set up 25 years ago. But, you know, that is definitely a big part of what we talk about all the time.
Great. Other answers to that? Okay. Let me come back over here. You haven't had a chance to talk much, and I won't miss you. Don't forget what you had to say.
Richard McCrow from Bakersfield College. We do offer, we're in a pilot right now. We have a pretty large inmate scholar program for inmates. In fact, the Kern Community College District with Saracosa at the other end is the largest in the nation of face-to-face instruction for colleges. But one of the courses that we're offering is the Career and Life Choices, which is modeled after the Get Focused, Stay Focused program that we offer to high school students. But we're bringing it inside to the prison to our college students to give them a chance to plan their life out beyond what they've experienced so far. Because we are finding a lot of our students don't have the plans in place to really know why they're going to school, those kinds of things. And this helps them develop a 10-year plan that includes education, what kind of career they want, what they're qualified to work at, those kinds of things. I think one thing that would help us also is if we had a good understanding the industries and the job and the labor market that would accept formerly incarcerated folks. For example, we know that they can't be school teachers, but can they do other jobs? And to get that sort of list together would help us in our planning for college courses.
Okay. One of the issues in the plan, we were to identify businesses that are friendly to hiring people who've been in the justice system. One of the issues, not all businesses want the world to know that. So I think, yeah, we could do a better job of identifying employers, but it's a little touchy. You had a comment.
No, I was just going to say that the program
Name?
that we hold Barbara Colasso. Our individuals that we have in our program are trained or on the job training. So we don't only teach them the skills of construction, we also teach them how to react when an issue comes up. If they were to do something wrong in our program, we tell them, okay, this is how you correct it, so that way when you go out in the real work field, this is how you're supposed to handle it. And we do have individuals that have been in our residential program that have been, that are now teaching the construction training course. So that is our goal for them. We could use, more funds, so we can, accommodate more individuals, because we want to accommodate everybody that wants to be in the construction training program. But we do the best that we can with what we have, and that's one of our things, is that on-the-job training, to teach them that leadership skills and how to react on a job when they go out in the real world.
Ali?
It's Ali Morris, ALIMORRIS. As I spoke in the last session we had, one of my passions is entrepreneurial training. When you talk about being able to get employment without having to identify your past, if you start a business and you go after a contractor as an independent contractor, you can get the work. In fact, a lot of times companies will prefer to hire an independent contractor rather than an employee because it's cheaper. There's no place in the independent contract proposal where it asks you if you've ever been incarcerated. All they want to know is if you can do the work, can you do it at the price we want you to pay, can you get it done on time? So one of the things that I would advocate for is to consider entrepreneurial training, business startup training for ex-offenders. I have made some proposals to AB 109 to see if I can get in to do that. It is not easy getting in, but I'm not going to quit because I think that's an answer for a lot of folks out there trying to find jobs. When there's a job opening, quite often if there's 2 positions, there's probably 200 or 300 people trying to get the job. If you're an employer and you have a choice between an ex-offender and an unemployed master's degree, which one are you going to hire? So I think that if we can teach how to start a business, quite often folks get some very usable skills when they're incarcerated. They may not recognize them as business skills, but they are. We can show them how to transfer those skills into a business, and I think that'll give them a little bit more interest. If it's their business they're trying to run, they have a little bit more interest in keeping it going versus trying to work for someone else. So again, that's something. My business is AEM Enterprises. I'm not soliciting for business, but AEM Enterprises, Ali Morris.
Ali, are you aware of any entrepreneurship programs here or any other place that do a particularly good job with inmates, reentry population, justice involved?
I'm aware of programs, but when you tie the inmates to it, I'm not aware of, I don't really know of anyone that is really particularly targeting that option for inmates. A lot of times it's focused on getting the jobs, getting them prepared for the workplace, and not a whole lot of attention given to entrepreneurial. It's starting to develop. MBDA, Minority Business Development Agency, put out a grant a couple of months ago for programs that will specifically target ex-offenders and trying to show them how to start a business and how to get going. So I think it's something that's developing. There's a lot of national interest. Hopefully we can get it here in Bakersfield.
So if you were designing a program to focus on justice involved, I'll use the biggest word, to do entrepreneurship, what would you consider your wish list adding to that so it would have a higher success rate for people who come out of the justice system?
Well, one of the things about our entrepreneurial system, it's not what everyone thinks. So for me, I think you have to identify those that have a genuine interest in it because it's a tough part. The program and curriculum itself already exists. So it's nothing that has to be reinvented. The biggest thing is to be able to identify and have people go through orientations of sorts to help them understand the mindset for starting their own business, and then put them into a program. I did some counseling for the SBDC, Small Business Development Council. I was one of their counselors, and I work with the SBA out of Fresno. I know that the help and material already exists. It's a matter of trying to coordinate it with what's going on.
Okay. You go.
Keith Woolridge, KEITHWOLARIDGE, New Life Residential Training. To piggyback on what Mr. Morris is conveying, being in the next bank for 20 years. Small business, yes, the how-tos, but again, when you bridge that and accompany that with the garden pathways, with mentorship, from an emotional standpoint, from those cognitive stuff, and I believe my colleague here to my left talked about soft skills. There is a way to tell a customer no without getting the hell out of my office, right? So, though you would have to have a strong soft skills along with the technical skills of running the business, I think that will be a prototype to take these these people that are leaving the program back into society. You need both.
Yeah. And again, I'd love to see you develop something like that we could take on the road.
Laura Epps, I just wanted to share with you the soft skills classes that we have at the America's Job Center of Kern. They are posted on our website. Every Wednesday, and all of these classes are open to everyone, to the public. On Wednesdays at 1:30, we have the resume interview workshop. What I love about this workshop is that we've combined it, because we used to do the resume and then interviewing separate in the past. More would come to the resume, but they wouldn't come to the interview. You could have the best resume in the world, but if you can't interview, they're not going to get the job. We also give an offer to mock interviews at the end of the class, and if they don't feel comfortable, we'll take time with them and we'll meet with them one-on-one to do a mock interview. On Mondays, we offer every other week, 1 week, the community and teamwork workshop. That one is really good because that way they can have effective communication skills and they have to be able to work as a team. And the other workshop is the image technology and social media workshop. Well, maybe they don't have a social media account, but maybe they get one right after they get out, right? But that's very important to have a positive image for employers, because as we know, when employers, right after the interview, what's the first thing they do? They look you up on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So one of the, this is Michael Saltz, one of the issues with regards, or I shouldn't say issues, one of the matter of fact is that the International Franchise Association, before I came working for ETR, I actually worked for a franchisor. The International Franchise Association is an international organization, and they actually look towards hiring individuals who were previously, or reentry folks who were previously incarcerated. And so they looked toward them specifically for franchises that are very inexpensive to operate. For instance, you know, a pet wash, or, I mean, there are so many different franchises that you can get into that are relatively low cost. The problem is that they need to have some money to be able to start that up, but the IFA has been pushing for years to get reentry folks into franchises.
Okay. Now I have one other question. What training would you and your staff like to have to do a better job serving the reentry population in your community? What gaps do we have in training for you and your staff that we could look to fill?
And I think for Kern County, or even for the region, it may be a good thing is developing social enterprises. Homeboy Industry does it. They hire their own clients to run a cafe, to run a print shop, to run a bakery. Chrysalis in Los Angeles does it, hiring the homeless individuals to take on the city work contracts. We have some other businesses up in the Bay Area that do the same thing, but maybe training on how to develop a social enterprise and help nonprofits to do those things, because then we have the ability to hire those individuals.
And just thoughts, I visited a restaurant in Lexington, Kentucky, top of the line successful restaurant. 23 of their 26 employees were in active substance abuse programs. They were getting drug tested. They were pretty hard-nosed about, I'd say very hard-nosed on what the requirements were. But the gentleman who ran that restaurant ran 3 other very successful restaurants. He had lower turnover in his restaurant that hired from the substance abuse community than his other 3 high-end restaurants. And it was partly how it was handled. But again, that's an example of a social enterprise. By the way, that restaurant is making money, and they're able to put that into the program, but it's super successful. By the way, the other difference with his other restaurants, everybody there is fighting for more time. They want to work all the time, and they're always asking them if they can do something else. So he has one person making strawberry jam on the side that he sells, and he says the secret is the more hours someone's involved, the higher the success rate.
There was, I think, one question that probably asked that I would ask, and it is in regards to what is it that you can do. This is what I would say. One, for an individual who has a conviction and is going out looking for work right now, what is available? Things like EDD program for bonding, but we have through employers training resource a program called on-the-job training, where one of the concerns that they had in regards to, for example, what occupations we should be training, other than an occupation that the state or an agency requires a license. What I see is that every occupation is open, but what we have to do if we are in charge of, if we're helping our client, is that we have to start developing relationship with these employers where we're going in and say, listen, and I think AB 109 has like work experience program, and in our case what we've done is we will go to an employer and say, listen, we'll do on-the-job training where you train this employee. We already check, you can check for, make sure that they can pass a drug test. We are going to assist them with all of these other rest of things, and we're going to reimburse you off of the salary. You're going to hire somebody anyhow, we're going to reimburse you off of the salary while they are learning. And we're going to support them through that whole process. And you're going to check off all the way through its 400, 800, whatever the hours is. And if that person's okay all the way through the end, then they'll be able to continue that job. The second portion of it, and we're doing a lot of goodwill, we're doing it with them right now. We have a covenant and many other agencies that we're doing it with. And I think what we can do is we can expand that and be more aggressive with this community. The other portion in regards when you're looking with grant going forward, what my suggestion is the entrepreneurial skill program is start coming up with little micro loans. A lot of these positions, if you're going to open up a lawn, if you're going to open up, all these smaller businesses don't require a whole lot of money. Many a time, all they require some tools, $400 or $500, $1,000 there. And so, if you're able to set aside programs where where there's some funding, where you tie into let's say one of those entrepreneurial programs. Where they're learning the skill sets, but at the end, when you finish a course, there's a $500 available to be able to buy tools or those kind of things. Those things are going to go very far in able to make that transition take place.
So to kind of summarize, you would say that we should link to better micro enterprise loans. By the way, there's some really good programs out there that you can grant write for. Secondly, maybe as a system, know more and get better at marketing OJT. And I got a question. If anybody in the room here hires someone, can they call you about getting an OJT to cover half of that position?
Absolutely. We have an open open program right now.
Sure.
We're hundreds, just the past year, we probably spent close to $500,000.
Yeah. So if you're looking for your program to hire someone, get a hold of this program and think about an OJT to offset some of the training costs and salary for the OJT period. Go ahead.
April Smith, Bakersfield Recovery Services. I'm going to say that Earn As You Learn program is working very well. I'm finding very sustainable employment and success continued after completion of the program. Elaine has one example of a success story. And there's many others. But what I'm seeing is it's working for the women. And I don't know why it's not working for the men. And I'm specifically the AB 109, America's Job Center referrals for the work experience. I don't really know what the gap is there. I'm not sure. But for the women, it's the Earn As You Learn, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Okay, other comments on that? Go ahead, sorry.
I just had my comments regarding the
Name?
staff development. I'm sorry, Sophia Morales with EDD. I know Marcia, she knows how to spell it.
Yeah, you don't have to spell it again.
So regarding the question about staff development, so I'm thinking of people who are outside of this normal work. I would say the training could have cultural sensitivity because it is a different culture. If you're not around this group. Communication techniques, the general demographics of the groups, education expectations that they might have at that point, how to re-include them in society, and how we can help them be re-included, and also maybe some mental health training.
Great. And again, you all in the room, or most of you anyway, are experts in how to serve this population. And I'm asking you what training your staff need. Now, another question, what training could we offer for employers or HR people? Is that the same list, you would say?
That's the list for that group.
Okay, training for businesses and HR people, and then for our people across the community. Okay, any other training for your staff you'd like? Anything you could think of? Okay, so we're pretty close to 3:30, right? We're there. Final comments, short? And again, let's put the email address. If you think of something we missed, and you will, and get back up to the email addresses. Michael, you probably put this at the end too. Oh, too late now. I think I'm only a click or two away. Come on. There. If you could either send it to Michael or I, riding home, you think you're talking to your neighbor, they have a great idea, let us know. This is a chance to get out of the box here a little bit. And again, I so much appreciate your comments. Anybody who hasn't had a chance to say anything? Oh, great.
Hi, Mari Valentin, Valentin. Going back to that collaboration, I did want to mention that I did partner up with, made a connection with CDCR. So I am actually one of the providers that's going to be going out to Wasco State Prison and inform those that are going to be released about all of our California nurse job centers throughout the state and where they can go and utilize the information once they get out, resources that are available to them. Of course, every office is different with different workshops, but I have made that collaboration, and that is pre-release, so that's something that I wanted to mention.
Okay, and again, I'm going to let you go, but a couple things, if I had more time, I would have touched on, and you can write back. You mentioned that we have some things that work better with women than for men. Are there specific programs that work better for a specific segment? Men, women, non-English speaking juveniles, or things we do that don't work for a population we could look to adjust? If you could let us know, I'd love to hear it. And again, short bullet points work. You don't have to write any long essay. But are there ways we could tailor these great collaborations to do a better job for specific parts of the population? Michael?
John, if you want to just talk about the reentry services partnership that we're going to be, so there's a continuation of all.
Okay, we're going to have another section. This one was more focused on partnerships. The next more on the services, the specific services. There is some overlap, and that's in this room, 1:30 to 3:30, December 4th. 1:30 to 3:30, December 4th, the same room. So services, and that's one I think we want to get into populations a little bit. But any feedback you can think of. Thank you so much for coming. I hope we didn't waste your time. I guess if we had, you wouldn't be here still. But thanks a lot, and we hope to see you again. Thanks.